Okay, well, good evening, beloved community. Welcome to this webinar, Beyond Visibility, the Power of Love in Defending Transgender Lives, which is going to be a necessary and urgent conversation. This webinar is being hosted by the Lavender Interfaith Collective, link in the Opening and Affirming Coalition. My name is Reverend Carmarian D. Anderson-Harvey. I use the she series pronouns. I am Koma Mokiata skin tone. I have black curly hair. I have glasses on. I have a stole that has many colors. And I have a black shirt with a white tab to signify me being clergy. I am an ordained minister with the Fellowship of Affirming Ministries and called to privilege clergy with the Southeast Conference of the United Church of Christ. And it is an honor for me to serve as your MC on this gathering this evening. Today we are coming on the heels of Trans Day of Visibility, which was a moment and still is a moment to honor and uplift and celebrate transgender lives. But in a world filled with relentless politics, religious, cultural attack, and you just name it, our existence have been under attack. As a Black woman of trans experience, we here today want you to hear our voice, our hearts, including with our allies and our co-conspirators. It is important in this season and forevermore that transgender visibility is centered, and visibility without protection is vulnerability. Acknowledgement without action is empty. And so we need something stronger. And we have entitled this and centered this around the need of love. Not just a sentiment, but as an action, a form of resistance and a tool for justice. Love, I say. This webinar is going to be centered around love. We're going to share our own first-person experience because it is important in this season that you hear from us, and so that we can do a better job in showing where our love and the action of love is going to resonate during this time as we uplift my community, the transgender community. It's about moving from symbolic gestures or real advocacy, real support, and real justice. Faith communities, listen to me clearly. Come close if you need to, okay? In this particular moment, we have a vital role to play in this work. So tonight we will hear from incredible transgender faith leaders, activists, and allies who will help us explore how faith and spirituality and individuals can take a support to transgender communities, not just on TDUV, Transgender Day of Visibility, but every single day. And more importantly, how love, radical, unapologetic, justice-seeking love can be the most powerful tool we have in defending transgender lives. This is more than just a conversation this evening. It is a clear call to action, and we must begin this call with this sacred intention. Well, as a Pentecostal preacher, I could not leave you without having just a little message as we continue to set what this conversation is going to be about. And so across all traditions, interfaith, we are called not just to be passive witnesses, but active participants in a world and in this work of justice and liberation. We have all types of examples across interfaith circle. What does the Lord require of you to act justly, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with your God? Or how about stand out firmly for justice as witness to Allah, even though it be against yourself or your parents or your kin? Or how about you have a right to your actions, but never to your action fruit? Actions for this action's sake is essential. Compassion, action for the liberation of all beings. So we live in a time where transgender and non-binary people are being targeted through harmful legislation, religious exclusion, and cultural violence. And yet, in the face of such adversity, we affirm tonight, love is more powerful than fear. Faith is stronger than oppression, and justice is the heartbeat of divine truth. So in many traditions, as you might hear this evening, the divine calls us to walk alongside those that are being marginalized. We have examples from the Christian, from the Muslim, and you just name it. But if we claim to honor these sacred teachings, then we must move beyond performative allyship, performative co-conspiratorship, tangible actions, uplifting, protecting, and affirming the full humanity of our transgender and non-binary siblings. So many of us gathered in this webinar, we are here for you and ourselves to recommit to the justice, a renewal of our faith in action, and a reminder that we are all called to not just be allies and not just be co-conspirators or accomplices in the fight for transgender liberation. But beyond that, our call of faith communities to action through this webinar, we want to challenge us to go beyond just words and into the work of justice, to stand with my community in a meaningful way and to use our faith as a force for love and to build a future where everyone is seen, fully affirmed, protected, and celebrated. So now let us begin. Now that we've set the framework, we want to be honest, transparent. This is for educational purposes, and we hope that you will take many of tools from our voices on this evening. Tonight, our panel discussion will be moderated by Cameron Van Kooten Lawhead. Cameron is the executive director of Room for All, an organization dedicated to LGBTQ plus advocacy within the Reformed Church in America. Born and raised in rural Midwestern USA, he is deeply committed to allyship with the transgender community and work to advance full inclusion and equity in faith spaces. After spending several years on the East Coast, Cameron now lives in Des Moines, Iowa. Am I saying that right, Cameron? You know, I'm from the South. All right. You'll tell us. With his husband, where he continues to fight for justice, human rights, and more inclusive church and society every day. So let us welcome our ally and our voice of inclusion, Cameron, as Cameron takes us away in this meaningful dialogue. Cameron?
Thank you so much, Reverend Carmarian. Des Moines, Iowa. And
that's what it was, Des Moines. Okay, Des Moines, Iowa.
Who needs to know? Yeah. Thank you for that introduction. Good evening, everybody. And I am delighted to be with you and honored to be serving as your moderator tonight. Let's get right into this and welcome our four panelists. Rabbi Eliana KL is an educator, theater maker, and community organizer. They are the Bay Area Education and Training Manager for Keshet, which works for the full equality of LGBTQ plus Jews in Jewish life. Eliana has over a dozen years of experience using theater, ritual, and play as a way to inspire people to think about how texts and traditions relate to them here and now, and how they can be tools in working for an equitable future. Lana Patel is an Afro-Indo-Caribbean trans woman from New York City, currently residing in Los Angeles. As the PR and government affairs liaison for Plume, a groundbreaking telehealth company serving the TGNCI community, Lana is dedicated to making a positive impact on the lives of others. She is also a model, singer, dancer, and makeup artist, showcasing her ability to captivate audiences visually and emotionally. Reverend Dr. Lawrence T. Richardson serves as the Associate Conference Minister for Church Vitality and Transitions in the Michigan Conference of the United Church of Christ. He holds certifications as a professional life coach, master life coach, and the Our Whole Lives Sexuality and Faith curriculum instruction, among others. And he loves empowering people to live life in wholeness, abundance, faith, intention, love, and gratitude. And finally, Leah Tamraz is a professional coach, spiritual counselor, founder of the Universal Coaches LLC, and a core energy coach who focuses on elevating clients' energy levels and awareness to impact their mindset, behavior, and overall success. Leah is also a patient advocate for the Trans Health Program at St. John's Community Health and is a member of Muslims for Progressive Values. Coming from a Middle Eastern culture, Leah is an expert at addressing crucial community and cultural taboos related to transitioning, whether it be cultural judgment, rejection, or family objections. Thank you each for being here. For our viewers, this panel conversation this evening will have three components. First, the role of faith in trans liberation. Second, the power of love as a tool for resistance and justice. And finally, practical ways that faith communities and individuals can support trans and gender nonconforming people beyond Trans Day of Visibility. We have four phenomenally gifted and equipped speakers with us. So while the above is a guideline for our overall journey this evening, I expect we may take a nonlinear route at times and circle back when needed. We will do our best not to speak over one another, but I want this very much to be a conversation among these four individuals. And I am very sorry, I'm getting an update here. The bio that I had for Lana is incorrect. She does not work at Plume currently. I'm very sorry about that, Lana. Thank you for that correction. Let's go ahead and get started right at the beginning, the role of faith in trans liberation. Each of you comes here from a different and unique faith background and faith journey. How has your faith journey shaped your advocacy for liberation of transgender lives? It's not a big question at all.
Well, I would certainly, I can begin, start us off. And, I came out as trans much later. I was 28. Before then, I had come out as queer at 14 and spent 14 years grappling with faith and questions of gender and orientation and learning that they were different, that gender is not the same thing as orientation. That we're more nuanced than even my faith background as a Southern Missionary Baptist Church kid prepared me for. So I did a lot of soul searching, and I did a lot of preparation and learning to get to a place where I could understand that God did love me, that God does affirm all of God's creation, that there aren't certain people that God loves and certain people that God hates, that God's not this narcissistic God, but the creator of all there is and all there will ever be, and that being is in and around all of us. And it took 14 years to get to a place where I could identify as trans, but it also became apparent to me that as a Christian, there are many opportunities to connect with other Christians and communities of faith to affirm trans folks. And so I got to connect the dots, if you will, when I first started transitioning by immediately connecting with Christians and people of faith that were affirming of trans folks. And so I got to connect with people like Reverend Dr. Rebecca Vogel in Minneapolis, people like Austin Hartkey and Reverend Dr. Malcolm Himshoot, trailblazers, Jameson Green, trailblazers that made faith and sexuality and gender and all of that makes sense. And so I was able to do some research as well that contributed to my doctoral work, because I thought if my experience is not really that unique, that coming out and wanting to connect with other Christians that were like me or that could speak into my life meaningfully from their perspective as trans folks, if that's not so unique, I wonder what other trans Christians are saying and experiencing. And so my research was just completed, actually, and it was called Trans Embodied Faith, Lessons from Transgender Christians for the Body of Christ. And so what that allowed me to do was really position myself as a listener and as someone that can curate stories, much like you all are doing here this evening, but to affirm that there is a trans faith perspective that is enriching many of us, that if we could connect, or if when we do connect those stories, that it empowers us on such a greater level. And so for me, being able to grow up, if you will, in a conservative tradition that didn't have space for those voices, to evolve into this space now, in this world now, where we have many religious groups, we have many non-religious groups that are making space for faith conversations amongst trans people more accessible.
Yeah. I also come from a mainline Protestant Christian background. So a lot of the names you've mentioned, the story you shared are stories that I've heard before. And thank you for naming those and calling out those trailblazers and for being one of them yourselves. Rabbi Eliana or Leah, how would you respond to that question? How has your faith journey shaped your advocacy for liberation of trans lives? Take it away, Leah.
Yeah, for me, I grew up in a religious Muslim family as a child, receiving guidance from my elders, growing up listening to many scholars, learning the Quran, the stories of the prophets, uh, even different Muslim sects, and overall the Abrahamic religions. I was inclined to question the reasoning behind everything. And the conclusion I found is that the majority of people tend to follow the interpretations which is wrapped in unquestionable facts. On the other hand, one thing that I do believe in is that God messages and the Quran is timeless, which means it has to be suitable for people to follow at any time and any place. So I had to find out myself, and just going to the holy book and the authenticated conversation between the prophet and his companions. And I found a lot to discuss and prove that trans people are just a valid God creation. Trans people are human beings. Yeah.
Yeah. There's Lana. We were just, no, you're good. Welcome back. Thank you for jumping back on. We're just discussing how your individual faith journeys shaped your advocacy for liberation of trans lives. Lana or Rabbi Eliana, would either of you like to speak to that? And that's not, I mean, it doesn't have to be so straightforward or simple either. I mean, maybe it's just, certain aspects of your faith journey connect. I mean, we all bring so much into this work with us.
Yeah, I mean, I think my Jewish identity and my trans identity at this point feel inherently linked, and they definitely didn't always. I grew up with a very specific version of Judaism and Jewish life being taught to me. I'm originally from Long Island, outside of Manhattan in New York. Now I live in the Bay Area, and I pushed away from Judaism for a number of years, and I pushed away from spirituality. And it was through queer Jewish spaces that I found my way back, and I saw the expansiveness of it. And just moving my microphone. And when I realized the expansiveness of Jewish identity and Jewish life, that kind of informed me and that informed my gender, and to really explore the expansiveness in myself, and then more learning and getting involved in different Jewish organizing spaces and learning more about tradition and the values of pursuing justice, and that we don't stand idly by, and that's for everyone. That informs now all of my advocacy, which includes trans people and includes, I advocating for myself and for others and for other marginalized communities. And it took kind of that separation to come back and find the real expansiveness and blurring of lines that exist in the tradition. But it took time for sure.
Thanks.
For myself, I would say that I identify as a Hindu, and I have family who come from all different walks of faith and life. And I've had the beauty and pleasure of exploring a lot of different other backgrounds, like faith backgrounds. But Hinduism was something that was taught to me from my grandfathers who are of Indian origin. And it was something that just really resonated with me when I think I kind of had my spiritual awakening in like 2017. And prior to that, I think I probably was more atheist, open to spirituality, but not really following any type of organized religion. And I think Hinduism for me is more of a spiritual path than it is like organized religion per se. There are certain things that are done that are set across like the different paths of Hinduism, but it always just really resonated with me since I had that like awakening moment. But I think in terms of my advocacy as a trans woman and being of the Hindu faith, they have found beautiful ways to intersect. And a lot of the work that I've gotten to do over the last at least 5 years, I would say, have allowed me to intersect my Indo Hindu identity with my trans identity. And there are some beautiful spiritual gods or deities within Hinduism that express fluidity within gender, whether it's like Shiva, Shakti, or there's like a specific version of Shiva where it's like half man, half woman, which represents Parvati, like his consort or like his other half. And there's Lord Krishna, who is very fluid, like a very feminine deity or god, and his other half Radha, who they were kind of the one person. But we also have like certain goddesses who are just for trans folks as well. And there's one called Mata Charini. And she is usually depicted on a rooster. And she was kind of the goddess that oversaw fertility, but a lot of people within the trans community, whether they're Hijra or Kinnar, and there's so many different types of terms for trans folks within the Indian diaspora, but a lot of them do, that's their main deity or their main goddess, because she oversees a lot of the trans folks. And when folks go in for gender affirming surgery, like bottom surgery, that's kind of the goddess who like oversees them and keeps them throughout the process and the journey. So there's a lot of really beautiful things about Hinduism that allows me to feel comfortable within my trans identity and also being Hinduism. But it also allows me to just like really relate with people and kind of take down the barrier of identity and just be one with others. So, yeah.
Yeah, thank you. I think that's a wonderful transition. You spoke about the deities in the Hindu tradition that even have direct ties to trans identity. Are there stories or narratives or aspects of your faith traditions, Leah, Lawrence, Eliana, that particularly speak to trans identity or that you find particularly give you hope or that you draw on?
For me, yes, absolutely. So there are two creation narratives in the Christian scriptures. And in the first creation narrative, in Genesis 1, we have what's called the Imago Dei, and it's a Latin term that means image of God. And in that particular creation story, God is depicted in a multiple way. So God refers to God's self as us. And in my perspective, that's affirming for people that have gender identities that are expansive. And then when you go a little bit further, that same passage says, let us make humankind in our image, in our likeness. And so for me, that affirms trans folks not only in the usage of pronouns or non-binary identities or gender expansive identities, but it also affirms trans people as being reflective of a God that is expansive, genderless, but also encompassing of all genders, and that we don't know all of the possibilities for creation that every face, every person that we meet, especially trans folks, we really literally are the embodiment of God. And so for trans people, especially, I believe that trans people are holy, that we are spiritual beings because we are the essence of God. Not only do we have the light and power of God in us, but we are the embodiment of masculine and feminine energy. We are the embodiment of all gender. And that's what God is to me.
Yeah, thanks. Leia or Eliana? We cannot hear you right now, Eliana. Leia, while they get that sorted out, do you want to share from your background
Yeah, it's there are many verses in the Quran where Allah is speaking to us as souls, not a specific gender. And regardless the context of described in the verse, but it's Allah is addressing the souls regardless. And even there is a verse in particular, I would like to mention it, that God created the soul and created its partner, another soul, without mentioning its gender. What this means to us, it gives us the opportunity to see more than one option. Definitely, it would not say it has to be binary or non-binary. It is everything. Any soul with any soul could be partner. And just applying this idea on trans people, it is completely valid. We are souls living in a physical body. This physical body, it does not exactly resemble us or our feelings or our souls. It might be different. And this is exactly the case for any trans person. Right? Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. It looks like we may have temporarily lost Rabbi Eliana. They will rejoin us when they are able. So starting to get into the theme of this event, the power of love in defending trans lives. I'm wondering if any of you, there they are. I'm wondering, hey, Rabbi Eliana, can you speak a little bit and see if we can hear you?
Yeah. How about now? Are we working?
Perfect. Woo! Go back to that last question we had then. What are the elements of your faith tradition that?
Yeah. Both with identity and also the hope piece. And I was just talking about this with someone earlier, but we're about to celebrate Passover in a few weeks, and it's the story of the Exodus. And there's one part in the Torah that says Miriam led the women and children out singing and dancing, timbrels in hand, while they were leaving Mitzrayim, the narrow place, towards the promised land. And there's commentary around that I really love, that says they had so much hope that one day they would be freed, that they made these instruments, and that it was actually that hope and that creation of instruments and music that is what led to them being freed and what eventually softened Pharaoh's heart in this story. And I really love just how powerful that is, the story that it was the women that did it. They left singing and dancing, and that is kind of like ultimately how this moment came about. So that's one that I pull from.
Yeah, that's really cool. Thank you. And your sound is perfect now. Thank you. So yeah, getting into the theme of this event, like I said, the title of our panel tonight is Beyond Visibility, the Power of Love in Defending Transgender Lives. I'm wondering if any of you have examples of where you have seen love and faith together be transformative in the lives of trans individuals, either within your own life or the lives of your communities, where love and faith have come together to transform.
I would say, I think something that's really beautiful about not just like within Hinduism, but I think like the South Asian culture, and I would say I think it's kind of amongst most spiritual practices, but it's the idea of like feeding folks, whether you're at like a church and there's like a Sunday dinner or lunch. But within like South Asian culture, you'll have langar if you're at a gurdwara, or you'll have prasad if you're at the Hindu mandir, the temple. And it's this idea of like creating food to like feed community, and it's open to everyone. And so anyone can come and enjoy a meal and learn more about the faith, the practice, meet other people. There's no pressure to join or to commit or anything, but it's just the idea of just feeding people, like food for the soul. And it's always really nutritious, beautiful vegetarian or vegan meals that are made. And I think that's like a beautiful way to kind of like draw people in and just like let them know that they're loved and they're supported. So
I have a hunch that many of us come from traditions where food is seen as a community care thing. And at least in my area of the world, sounds very much like what we would call a church potluck. However, none of that was vegan or vegetarian, I promise you. But the idea that food is a community care and a bringing together of community space. Yeah. Anybody else? Where have you seen faith and love transform or combine to cause transformation?
I would like to share something about myself. I came from the Middle East, right? And from moving from the Middle East, I was like, everything there is not accepting. Okay. And when I came here, my first experience finding a community, especially like a community that is related to my faith. And this is how I find myself connecting with MPV. And I
Sorry,
would just,
that's the Muslims for Progressive Values, MPV.
yes, yeah,
Okay, sorry.
correct.
Thank you, Maya.
And I was really wowed, astonished by how acceptance and love between all the members, everyone in the community, it's like accepting. And I was like really surprised. I totally came from the other side, and it was so amazing for me. And I really appreciated the experience.
Yeah.
So it's really important to have this faith communities, and every trans person would, as per their faith, they need to find what is close to them.
Yeah. And that's very much tied in with the concept of chosen family in queer circles. And sometimes that's a chosen faith community or, yeah.
I would like to speak to a congregation in Washington State, Liberation United Church of Christ. It was founded by a Black queer minister who affirmed the voices and experiences of trans folks as best as, of course, any person can. But one of the things that I valued about their leadership was that they would incorporate trans folks into leadership and inviting trans folks to design events and spaces that were specifically for trans people. And so one of the events that they curated, and they still, I believe, hold this event today. I've been to it a few different times, but it's called Trans Faith Weekend. And so they create this space that is very much lovingly intended to be a space of healing and exploration and conversation. But it opens up, like you said, with food, a chance to break bread, that conversation to nourish our bodies so that our hearts and our minds might also find nourishment. And then they extend into time for socializing, time to just be people connecting with other people. And then the time ends with worship, the celebration that caps it all off on Sunday morning. And the worship services incorporates trans leadership, and it's exciting. And it's an affirmation of not only the trans folks in leadership, but the God who loves and blesses trans people and all people in worship and in our living. And so just that example of how faith and love creates a space for trans people of faith, and of course others, especially on Sunday mornings. Sunday mornings open to everybody, but for others to just be together in celebration and also in connection.
Mm. Yeah.
Yeah. Resonates with
Having a hard time hearing you again, Rabbi Eliana. Okay. We're going to let you figure that out. This wasn't one of the questions that was sent to y'all ahead of time, but I'm curious now. A couple of you have mentioned in different ways that, maybe you took a break from faith, or I think, Lana, you had said that you would identify as atheist at one point, or agnostic. I'm wondering what role, if you were one of the people that, maybe took a break from organized faith or pushed back on your faith in some ways, did coming to terms with your identity play a role in connecting with the faith that you currently have? Or did the faith that you are now aligning with play a role in coming to terms with your identity? What did that look like? Or was there any symbiosis between those two things?
I think for me, I had a moment where my paternal grandfather had passed. So the spiritual awakening kind of came from that. So I had a moment, I just moved to California and I was driving to get groceries late at night. And as I was passing on the way to the grocery store, I came across this beautiful building and I just was in awe of the building. And then the more I took it in, I realized it was a Hindu temple. And it was months before my grandfather had passed. So I saw the temple and I thought it was really beautiful. And I mustered up the courage to reach out to them to connect. And they were Gujarati. So my grandfather was Gujarati as well. But they didn't speak English very well. At least the person I spoke on the phone, and my Gujarati was not very good either. So we weren't able to really connect that well. But then one day I just decided to go there, and I met the main priest, pundit, for the temple, and he gave me a tour, and I stayed there for the arti, which is the prayer, and I just really felt at peace in the space. So afterwards, when my grandfather passed, I think he passed maybe 2 weeks after that time going to the temple. I had a moment where I felt like I needed to be grounded again and be rooted back into the ways of my ancestors. And I just felt something was calling me in that direction. And so that's kind of how I got back into the faith, where I used to like hear stories and learn things as a child, but then I kind of left that and I left all religion for a while. But him passing, I think it was a way to honor him because we were so close growing up. And when I transitioned, I didn't see him for 10 years because I was afraid of rejection. I wasn't sure how he would take me being a woman. But we had such a really close like relationship, and everyone would always say like I was like the favorite grandchild. But he was basically on his deathbed, like asking for me, and so I think that really weighed heavily with me, like knowing that I didn't get to maintain the relationship that I wanted with him because I was afraid of being rejected for being trans. And so me finding my way back into spirituality or faith, religion was like me paying homage to him and honoring him. And then, learning more like getting deeper within the religion and the faith led me to understand that it was a space that was so encompassing for so many different people, and that it doesn't discriminate against, like, there's no text discriminating against people who are LGBTQ, and that it really is a welcoming space. A lot of this discrimination that happens comes from things that were taught to us when we were colonized by various, regions of the world and different countries. And so that was very reassuring for me. And yeah, I think ultimately it just let me know that like God is love and love is God, and it's all one. So yeah.
Yeah. Has anybody else had that experience of, choosing religious identity and the role that trans identity played in that, or vice versa? I don't know.
I would say for me, like I mentioned earlier, I initially came out as queer, so I had to first learn what gender identity was for me, and I would say once I did learn that, I did choose my religious identity very intentionally as a Christian. Spent time in a Buddhist sangha. I studied Islam for a year. I am a proponent of ecumenism. I believe that interfaith dialogue is important. I believe that Jesus is just my superhero, but that he's not the only superhero out there for folks of faith. But I did choose this path intentionally. And I will say that I did, to answer your other question, have that time where I left the faith, but it wasn't by choice. And I would say being kicked out of my home church growing up was the best gift. I mean, at the time it was traumatizing and it took a lot of therapy and self-love to overcome all of that. But looking back, it was the best thing that could have happened to me because I was forced to learn about other religions. I was forced to learn about other ways and paths to understand and to relate to God. And that helped lead me to progressive thinkers of many different faith traditions. And then specifically the three Christian queer scholars, theologians, and pastors that I connected with, Reverend Dr. Rebecca Vogel, Reverend Dr. Bishop Yvette Flunder, and James Pennington from Minneapolis. Those three initially in my walk, they kind of helped reconnect me back to Christianity, because once I had been kind of kicked out as a teenager and started exploring as a young adult, I didn't know where I would fit. And so meeting the three of them from three different churches, so they weren't all from the same place, but they helped me see that there were many different expressions of faith, and that it was about finding the path that worked for me, but that I could name and claim Christianity as my own.
Yeah. Leah, I saw you unmute yourself a little bit ago. Did you want to speak on this?
I would like to share. I did not take a break from the faith. It's actually it was the opposite. I was praying intensively to get an answer from God to have more affirmation during my journey. And although it started like I I started from like very young age thinking about my feelings and all of that, and I did not really understand what's happening. Later on, growing up in a very religious community, and it was very challenging for me. And like many people in the Middle East are denying this, they are rejecting it. And the only one who I can get an answer is God. So I was praying every day, asking in every prayer if I am on the right path or not. And as Muslims, we do believe that as human beings, this is our like belief that we are destined. We have a fate, and we, no matter what, we are going to have this fate to happen. And the only way to change this fate is through prayers. So I was using this actually, and it ended like I really had enough affirmation, and I felt like I'm really blessed by God during my journey, and I hope it continues.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Eliana, did you?
Yeah, I had a moment or checking the sound. I had several years where I pushed away from Judaism because, like I said earlier, that I was just taught such a specific way that I was not finding resonant. I found the ritual, the way that I was taught to participate in it, was just very mundane, and I couldn't find the meaning. And it truly was queer Jewish spaces that kind of pulled me back in, and I felt the draw. I grew up in a very Jewish household. My parents were Jewish educators, so it was always around, and I took pride that that was like my upbringing. But I couldn't participate in it. And I had what I call like my life-changing trip to San Francisco in 2018, where I decided to go to Shabbat services one Friday night at this historic LGBTQ synagogue in the Castro, which is the LGBTQ historic district in San Francisco, or one of, I should say. And they did the blessings in what was traditionally written in a masculine form. They did it in the masculine, the feminine, and a gender neutral, which Hebrew is a gendered language and usually just masculine and feminine. But they had started creating a non-binary Hebrew, and it unlocked something in me that I can't quite put my finger on, but it really changed my entire outlook of how I wanted to participate in Jewish life. And I left that trip. I went back to New York and came out as genderqueer the very next day. And I also started making the pivot from theater, and I was doing a lot of art as activism, to, okay, so how do I explore Jewish identity through art and theater? And that was then my path to the rabbinate. Was I really love storytelling and teaching and art, and being a spiritual leader and being a person of faith feels very similar. We're teaching, we're telling stories, we are gathering community together. So it played such a major role in my self-discovery and how I participate now as a trans person.
So that synagogue was actually like creating their own new gender neutral language.
Yes. And now there's a few organizations that have done that and created non-binary Hebrew.
Wow. That's really cool. I would also just say, as like a theater kid through and through, I know what a slippery slope theater is to like leadership roles.
There's so many of us.
But okay, so that's a great segue for me, Rabbi Eliana, because kind of moving into the second part of this, the power of love as a tool for resistance and justice. Obviously, many transgender people have experienced harm either in religious spaces or at the hands of religious people. Might not even be from your own religious community or background. You just named one way in which a faith community became not only a place of healing, but really a place of kind of eye-opening and affirmation. What other experiences do any of you have, or would you say, if you get to send a message to the faith community that you're part of, what is the way that you would say, what's that stop hurting people and start affirming people? What is the way that they can do that? If you have the magic wand, how do you, and not simple, but it might be as simple as using gender neutral language in a way that is like surprising and eye-opening. It doesn't have, it doesn't have to be big structural change.
I could kick this one off.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah. In Jewish tradition, there's this idea of teshuvah, which means to return. And it's used like to return to one's righteous path. And it's used a lot of time when harm is caused, and there's steps to repair. Maimonides, who was one of the Talmudic philosophers, so this ancient Torah commentary, has steps to repair. And I think that is one of the big showings of love. And I can just quickly read them off because I wrote them down. But if we're talking about the showing the love and the healing, first we have to own any harm that is caused and when people have felt excluded. Then we begin to transform. There's restitution and accepting any consequences and changed behavior. We apologize, and then we have to make different choices. So maybe the different choices are things like community gathering spaces or gender neutral Hebrew or trans inclusive texts. But yeah, throwing that framework out there.
Yeah.
For me, I would say just move with love and compassion. When I first started attending the temple, the mandir, people were just so like warm and welcoming, and it let me know that like I found my space in my community and my tribe. And before I knew it, I had all of this chosen family. I moved to California with my roommate, and I had a few friends that were kind of scattered about in the LA area. But all my family, I'm born and raised in New York. My parents are still there. My siblings are there. My nieces are there. I have other siblings and family all on the East Coast. But, I was really out there by myself for the most part. And I was surrounded by all of these amazing people who really looked out for me and would call me or text me and let me know what's happening or invite me for dinners. We have a celebration called Navratri, which is happening now. Actually, this is the spring one, but the main one is in the fall, and it's 9 holy nights, and it celebrates the divine feminine, and it's like all about the cycle of womanhood. And all of the women just kind of like showered me and loved on me. And I didn't have a whole lot of wardrobe, so they all like came together and like gave me bags and loads of clothes. So I had beautiful like Indian attire for the festivals, and they would cook meals and send me home with food or invite me for dinners, or if they were going out somewhere, they invite me. So it was just like this beautiful welcoming, and I felt so safe and warm and invited in that space. And so I would just say, just like continue that type of vibe and that energy with other people, and just let people know that love is like really the way that we conquer all the hate and the ignorance in this world. Like we really need to move with compassion and grace and call people in. I think that's really important.
Can I ask you, Lana, was this a community? I mean, what you just shared is stunningly beautiful. Is this a community that had experience with people of trans identity before? Or was this just, they were showing up and this is how we show community? Because what you described is just so heartwarming. And I wonder if this is like a community that had like done their work on this already, or if this is just the way we're showing up.
I think that's just the way they showed up.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it was this. There was no questions asked. There was no airs or like funny vibes or anything. It was just like they saw me, they met me, they liked me, they brought me in, and they were just so
Recognize
warm.
the need and just met it.
Yeah. And they were like, "Oh, you don't have stuff for this festival? Oh, we have things." And oh, and I mean, it got to a point where probably my Indian clothes, I had more Indian clothes than I had Western clothes at one point. Now they're probably neck and neck. I've like built up my wardrobe quite a bit, but yeah, they would just shower me with things constantly, and like, "Oh, I just got this in. Oh, I'm going to India. Do you want anything?" Or, so there was, yeah, such a beautiful community, and I've invited other friends, queer and trans friends, to the space. They loved it. They have such a great time. It's always really welcoming when they come. So
I love that.
yeah.
Thank you. Lawrence, I saw you unmute yourself.
Yeah. So I think that there are some practical things that I can speak specifically to Christian communities because that's my space and my context. But practical things that Christian communities can do. And it starts with a quote from Austin Hartkey's The Bible and the Lives of Transgender Christians. And he says in that book that transgender people have gifts to offer the church. And I want to add and clarify for a lot of folks that might be a part of Christian communities that the gifts that we bring are over and above our ability to defend ourselves and our rights to exist. Certainly, some of us are people that present on gender or orientation, that sort of thing. But it shouldn't be the role of the trans person in the community to educate all the folks on how to be nice to trans people. I think some of that work we need to do ourselves, just on how do we be decent human beings, and then read some books and take courses and attend webinars like this one where you can learn more and share some of the load instead of allowing trans people to be pigeonholed to be the translator for folks, or the mediator for trans lives, or the defender of trans lives. What does it mean to be in partnership? And what does it mean to be in loving community where we are holding space for each other to flourish?
Yes, the comments are blowing up for you over here, Lawrence. Leia, was there anything that you wanted to say on this? What is the way that you would tell your faith community, either specifically or more broadly, about how to be a place of affirmation rather than exclusion or harm?
Basically, we need to make sure that we have access to resources, any kind of resources, support group, counseling, legal, mental health, well-being, different type of resources. It's at the end of the day, like, a certain human being is under stress and needs support. As simple as this. This is what the trans people are facing. And for faith community or health community perspective, it's definitely providing access to different type of resources.
Yeah, I mean, at a very basic level, that is vital. Many faith communities, I mean, especially in the moment we find ourselves in, it would be enough if people were just being attacked for being trans, but if they're also being attacked for being women or people of color or immigrants or whatever other various intersectionalities there are, people are afraid, and faith communities in many ways are afraid too, which isn't always helpful. What would you say to encourage a faith community that might fear backlash from standing up and being an ally or conspirator with trans individuals? this also, I mean, this ties so much into what you said, Reverend Dr. Lawrence. I mean, trans people shouldn't have to be the trans translators. You shouldn't have to be the ones telling the churches how to do it right, or the faith communities or congregations. But while I have you here, if you're willing to answer that question.
Absolutely. I would say for anybody who's afraid, do it afraid. Faith without fear really isn't the lived experience. Many of us that have faith have the faith we have because we've overcome very frightening situations that we had to live through. And so when you overcome things that scare you, that challenge you, those things grow you up. Those things build up your spiritual muscle and allows you to see that you can do hard things. You can do things that make you scared. You can overcome those things. And if you make a mistake, if you misgender someone, or if you say someone's dead name, just acknowledge and apologize. Move on. Don't personalize it. We all make mistakes. We all, as in my biblical tradition says, we all fall short of the glory of God. And what I take that to mean is we all do things that maybe aren't perceived as perfect by some, and yet we all do the best that we can. And so I would say if you're afraid, then that means you're doing something, and that's good. That's better than doing nothing at all.
I have all night, so I can just, go ahead, Lana.
No, I love that. It reminded me of a quote. I was looking at the comments as well in Sikh religion, and Sikhism, or Sikhi, and it's without fear, without hate. But I would just implore them to, constantly move with love and compassion, and just really push aside any of the biases and understand that we're all people. We're all human at the end of the day. We all have hearts. We're all bleeding blood, red, and that we deserve protection, and we deserve to be covered and to be seen and held as whole individuals. And we need our leaders to really lead and step to the front and make sure that we feel the guidance of them, and we also feel the protection from them. And a lot of people respect these leaders. And so whether it's the pundit, the imam, the rabbi, the priest, the deacon, these people, or the father, these people have the ability to get through to some people who normally would not be open to listening to someone. And I think they hold vital spots within our community. And I just really hope that they take those positions and they continue the word and allow folks to really understand that we can't do this in silo. We have to do this together, and trans folks should not be the ones on the front line constantly advocating on behalf of the community. We need to have our accomplices.
One of the things that I'm thinking about is being a place for the learners, and how places of faith and faith leaders have a unique opportunity to be welcoming for people who are learning about trans identities and trans liberation that maybe aren't there yet. And if faith institutions decide to not take a stand for trans folks and not to push for trans liberation, out of fear of backlash or people getting it wrong, we're shutting the door on so many. And if we're afraid that some people might leave because they are against trans liberation, be okay with letting people leave. Sometimes that happens. Not every congregation, not every faith leader is for everyone, and that's okay. And also, we want to We want to be a space where people can come learn, and we want to bring people with us. So saying like, it's okay if you're not there yet. This is where we are as a community, and let us show you, let us teach you, because look at how much capacity we can open up, and how much love we can extend, and have the spaces that this is why trans liberation is so important. This is why trans people are so important and why they belong here. And this is why we celebrate them. And I think that I think the world of faith has a really unique opportunity to be that space and hold all of this while we move together.
Yeah, I thank you, Rabbi Eliana. My full-time work is doing LGBTQIA plus advocacy in Protestant Christian faith spaces. And I hear similar things too, like, what if a bunch of people leave? And I'm like, there's 15 other churches in a 20-minute block where they can worship. Like, maybe it's time for you to take the stand and be the one place where the queers can be safe. So a different translation, but yeah, that transcends boundaries. Leah, is there anything that you would say to Muslim faith communities that fear backlash or fear making that step about why they should make that step?
It's I really don't believe like there is a lot to fear about. Like every community, they stand strong with clear messaging and welcoming everyone who wants to join. The only thing that the communities need to deliver or give to people who are like have some biases, they need to be kind and be compassionate and uh, tell them this with love. So when people with biases see how much compassion they are receiving, they might rethink about their biases and 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 reconsider and maybe change their minds, right? Just using love and compassion to convince people of like how everything will work, all of us together.
Yeah. So I have one final question for you before we hand it back over to our wonderful MC. How do you sustain your own spiritual and emotional well-being in the face of transphobia and discrimination? Maybe this is rooted in your faith tradition. Maybe this is self-care that you do outside of that. But what gets you out of bed in the morning?
Honestly, I do this because of other trans people. That's what gets me out of bed every day. I think about the young trans kid in a rural space or in a city where they don't know any other trans folks. And I think how brave they are every day just to wake up and hope and dream. And if there's anything that I can do, whether it's with our accomplices or with our kindred, that inspires hope and possibilities for those kids that I may never meet, then it gives me a reason to continue even when it gets hard. And the things that I do to take care of myself, I do a lot of praying and dancing and crying and laughing and dreaming and hoping, but I also rest and take time for myself. And I turn off the messages that are harmful, but I also have to listen to some of those to be informed. And so just finding the balance on how much I take in and how much I allow to be in my space, but also curating that sacred space for myself where I'm not leading, I'm not doing and giving, I'm just being able to be blessed and loved on, and maybe just absorb the goodness that I need that replenishes my soul.
I would like to say what makes me wake up in the morning. Okay, I would remind myself, and I want, if everyone listening, if they please to repeat after me. I am not alone. I belong. I need to be strong for people out there.
Mm. Yeah.
Just everyone keep it, try it, and see what will happen.
Mm. Yeah. Lana or Rabbi Eliana? And if you don't have anything to share, that's fine too.
I mean, echoing, like it's the youth, it's the kids, it's the trans and non-binary kids that I get to work with through my job, that I get to volunteer with. It's my like queer cousins that are young and have recently come out, and now like I get to be a trans elder in the family. Like that's so exciting. It's the love of my community that shows up for me on a regular basis to help me sustain my work. Like their love and their belief in me is medicine to my soul during the most challenging moments. And it's also the knowing that there are some days where I can do nothing but like get out of bed, shower, and go to sleep. And that is okay. Some days just existing is all right. And tomorrow I'll do more. And sometimes that is just the reality. Compassion and grace, for sure.
Yeah. I think particularly in my brand of faith, we speak so much about compassion for others. And it really is that, putting the oxygen mask on yourself sometimes is necessary. Compassion for yourself, grace for yourself. And yeah, community. I'm just beginning to venture into the world of much more like intentional interfaith work. But it's so important that we do this because dang, our voices are so much more powerful when it's more of us together speaking. Lana, you're back. Is there anything you wanted to say to this?
Could you give me that one more time? I missed that.
Yeah. How do you sustain your own spiritual and emotional well-being in the face of transphobia and discrimination?
Yeah. I think one thing is tuning out the news because it can just be an influx, and it can be one addictive, but two very damaging. I mean, you get it on TV, the newspaper, social media, and it's constant influx of negative news. But also surrounding myself with good people, equipping myself, like taking in what I need to know to be able to equip myself to do what I need to do and be able to support those around me, but not getting so consumed to where it just feels like doom and gloom and not being able to be at ease or rest. Therapy, I meet with my therapist probably once a week. Really great. Having supportive friends and family that I can lean on. Going to temple, I always feel at peace when I'm in temple. Doing prayers at home, whether I'm lighting incense, I'm lighting a candle, or I'm just taking some time to pray, taking some time to meditate, doing yoga, being intentional about just being one with myself, whether that's just taking in the beauty of the world, looking out the window, taking a sip of water, admiring the fact that, I don't know, like I'm alive and that I have this moment to, be, I think is really important. Yeah, I would say those are my things.
Thank you. Thank you each so much. Leah, Reverend Dr. Lawrence, Rabbi Eliana, Lana, thank you so much. It has been an unspeakable honor to be here alongside you tonight and learn from your experiences. This is obviously such a huge topic, and a 90-minute webinar on this doesn't even begin to scratch the surface, but I'm so grateful for everyone who joined us virtually. Thank you for being here. On behalf of myself and other members of the Lavender Interfaith Collective, we are grateful for your connection and for joining us in this event. Please stay tuned for a few more minutes. I'm going to pass the microphone back to the incomparable Reverend Carmarian to close us out. Thank you, everyone.
Wow, what a great conversation. Thank you so much. There were some takeaways that I want to recap before we end, and I hope I captured what was said. But let me just tell you what blessed me. I could have shouted around my house. Do the work scared. Just bless me. I think I'm going to have to preach a sermon on that. And then I also heard invite them to learn. And then also be okay if they leave. Plant that seed and through faith so we can see if it grows. But faith communities, individuals can support transgender people beyond just Trans Day of visibility by taking concrete steps towards the inclusion and advocacy and justice that we need. We're living in a turmoil. Let me just use that word, in this political landscape, and to be nonpartisan, anything that is discriminating and anything that hurts and anything that is trying to erase humanity is a tragedy. And that's kind of where we're living. And the reason why we have to have this conversation, these transgender voices, because they need to be heard. There's been mis and disinformation that has been centered around my community, my beloved siblings, and we all must do our part. So here are some practical ways that could be some lasting change. A couple things that we heard: center transgender voices in leadership. Invite the transgender people to lead. Listen to transgender people. I promise you, if you listen to us, we'll tell you our own stories. We don't need your fiction. We can tell our own stories, right? We can set the agenda if we are invited. And we can certainly tell you what support we need and perhaps what it might look like. Additionally, make your faith space transgender inclusive. There are still things that you in your faith arena, faith practices can enforce. We like to call them non-discrimination policies, but in essence, just be an opening and a welcoming type of environment that allows all the beloved humanity to come in and fellowship, if that is over some good food. Now, I'm from the deep South, okay? Good food is grease and butter at the same time. Come sit, eat, gain a little weight, and love on each other. But provide inclusive language also, that I heard also from Rabbi. We need to ensure that our language is so inclusive that no one is left behind. And because in our faith traditions, we do actually have opportunities where we can redefine what these sacred words are, particularly to our transgender community, because we are the chosen vessel and the chosen generation. Educate your community. Offer direct support to our transgender individuals. In other words, can you become the sanctuary where we can show up and we can continue living free in your environment, thriving in your atmosphere, and where we all can grow together, be the change that we desperately need to see in the world. Advocate for transgender justice. Speak out against these lies. Speak out against these lies. They're lies, people. It's okay. I'll tell you, it's lies, okay? And if I was standing in my pulpit, I would say these lies are coming from the pit of hell, okay? That's how we talk, in our Pentecostal, okay? But let me just tell you this. Encourage your congregation, your body, your community to take action. Write letters, call your legislators, attend rallies, support us with our voice, show up as co-conspirators. And when we show up, give us your spot, stand behind us, so in the event we can use your privilege also for protection. And then celebrate transgender joy and spirituality by honoring those transgender people and beyond, those that have made a difference in your life, those that are in your circles, on the media, our panelists on today. Go to social media and write something about what you heard from these amazing voices and use it as a tool to advocate. And then finally, commit year-round to advocate for inclusion. Examine your faith traditions, your policies, those relationships you have, and make transgender inclusion part of your community mission. So in other words, it's going to take practice, and practice just do not make perfect. Practice makes permanent. Come on, somebody. I just felt that. Practice, oh, come on. It makes permanent. So by making these commitments, faith communities can move from passive allyship to actionable solidarity, ensuring that my people, my great people, those that have been chosen by the divine, can be seen, be celebrated, protected, and fully included in the life of the church, of faith, your environment, and society. We also did some work for you. We actually have developed a resource that a link will be dropped. You also can find this on our social media page, which I will share with you. But these resources are going to consist of books that you can read, articles, educational opportunities, and more resources that will help you be more intentional. You do not have to do this alone. We have documented things. There have been co-conspirators who have taken our very existence and put it in a way that you can become educated. But we never can leave this opportunity of this message without a call to action. So visibility is just the beginning. Now we must face the action. Faith calls us beyond words into justice, beyond recognition into advocacy, and beyond allyship into true solidarity. So I ask you to commit to making your faith community a place, a true belonging for the transgender community. Challenge the injustice. Speak out against anti-transgender legislation, federally, state, and municipal. Can I give you all three of them? State, federal, and municipal. They all correlate together. And we need our voices in every part of them so we can make a difference, so we can actually speak truth over the lives that are being centered around our lives. Live out a radical love, because love in action is the most powerful force of change. The fight for transgender liberation is sacred work, family. It's sacred work, and I promise you it is. But let us all stand together. And guess what? If you're not ready to do this sacred work, but you have an unction, partner with us. Let us come together, and let's actually come together as an army so we can defeat whatever attack is coming upon. Because if they come for us, the transgender community, right around the corner, they're going to come for you in whatever you are in your life. So, beloved community, as we bring beyond visibility the power of love and defending transgender lives to a close, we do extend our deepest gratitude to each of you. To our amazing panelists, thank you so much for your courageous voice. Faith leaders, activists, and allies, and our co-conspirators who shared your wisdom, experience, and prophetic calls to action. Your voice is a beacon of hope and justice. This is being recorded, and this will help someone. And can I tell you, it will help someone know that they can live and they shall not die. My God, I'm feeling it now. They shall live and they shall not die. Because why? We speak love into their lives. We see them and we recognize them, and we hear their voice and we hear their cry. And we are coming together to let you know that you're not by yourself. And because you're not by yourself, lean and depend on those that are advocating for you. A special thank you for those who are working behind the scenes, our organizers, our tech support, and those who made this gathering possible. And to everyone who joined tonight, thank you. Your presence is a testament of the power of love and action. So stay connected with us. You can join, like, and follow us now on Facebook at Lavender Interfaith Collective Facebook page. It will be Lavender Interfaith Collective -link, LINC. If you will put that in your search engine, please follow us for more educational opportunities, ways to network, ways to come to our table, have some virtual food with us. There is a movement and there is a clarion call. And I speak that we have the power to change anything that meant for evil to turn around for good for the transgender community lives. So together we will be moving beyond visibility into this radical love, unwavering solidarity, and collective liberation. Again, thank you, and may you all be blessed on this journey of change, inclusion, and wholeness that we desperately need in this landscape called political climate.